Welcome everyone to today's special meeting of Volpara Health Technologies, including those joining online. I'm Paul Reid, the Chair of Volpara. For about the next 20 odd minutes, you're going to listen to me go through all of the meeting procedures, the resolutions that we have today and the rationale behind the scheme, etc. So I do apologise for that in advance. So today's special meeting is in person and online via the Lunit platform. This allows shareholders, proxies and guests to attend the meeting virtually. All online attendees are watching a live webcast of the meeting. If you cannot see the live webcast, please select the broadcast icon at the bottom of your screen. In addition, shareholders and proxies can ask questions and submit votes. If you encounter any issues, please refer to the online meeting guide that accompanies the scheme booklet. Alternatively, during today's meeting, you can all call 1300 737 760 if you require assistance with our online system. I am joined today by our Managing Director, Terry Thomas, and fellow directors, Roger Allen and Mark Bow, who are attending the meeting in person. I'd also like to acknowledge my fellow directors, some of which are joining us virtually, Karen, Anne and John. In addition, our Chief Financial Officer and Company Secretary, Craig Hadfield, is present and at the meeting today. This is a single purpose meeting for shareholders to consider and vote on the scheme of arrangement with Lunit. Voting on the resolution which seeks shareholder approval of the scheme will be by poll. I'll shortly open voting to provide you with enough time to vote. Those of you in the room today, if you are eligible to vote at this meeting, Boardroom will collect your voting card after discussions on the resolution. For those attending this meeting online, if you are eligible to vote at this meeting, a voting icon will appear on your screen. Selecting this icon will bring up the resolution and present you with the voting options. To cast your vote, simply select one of the options. There is no need to press a submit or send button as your vote is automatically counted. You do, however, have the ability to change your vote up until the time I declare voting is closed. I now declare voting open. The voting icon will soon appear. Please submit your votes at any time. I will give you a warning before I move to close voting. We will shortly run through the proxy votes received, the key details of the scheme and the board's recommendation, and then take questions before moving to the vote. The scheme booklet, which contains the notice of the meeting and explanatory notes, has been circulated to shareholders, and I will take that as read. I am advised that a quorum is present. The special meeting is duly convened, and I therefore declare the meeting open. So, to approve the scheme, there are two voting thresholds that must be met. These are 75% or more of the votes cast in each interest class must be voted in favour of the scheme, and more than 50% of the total number of Volpara shares on issue must be voted in favour of the scheme. There is one interest class for the purposes of the scheme, being all shareholders. Proxy votes. I have written advice on the proxies received and prepared by Boardroom, our share register. As of this morning at 9 AM Sydney time, Volpara has received proxy votes for 177,891,500 shares, equal to 69.93% of the voting shares in Volpara. I intend to vote as chair of the meeting all open proxies in favour of the resolutions to be put to the meeting. For the interest class threshold, 96.92% of the shares voted by proxy were in favour of the scheme. and 67.78% of the total number of Volpara shares on issue were voted by proxy in favour of the scheme. As a result of the proxy votes received and absent a material change at this meeting in the votes of the shareholders who already cast proxy votes, it is expected that the scheme will meet both voting thresholds required to approve the scheme. As you know, Lunit has proposed to acquire 100% of the shares in Volpara by way of a scheme of arrangement. The scheme consideration being offered for your shares is Australian $1.15 per share. The scheme consideration is significantly above the independent advisor's valuation range of 67 to 82 Australian cents per Volpara share. We have received a question in the lead up to this meeting relating to whether all board members recommend that shareholders vote in favour of the scheme. Volpara's directors consider that $1.15 Australian per share is an attractive price for your Volpara shares, and all directors recommend that shareholders vote in favour of the scheme. Some of the reasons for this recommendation include the scheme consideration of $1.15 Australian in cash per share is significantly above the independent advisor's valuation range of 67 to 82 Australian cents per share. The scheme consideration is a significant premium to Volpara's pre-announcement trading and, in the opinion of the independent advisor, is significantly above the average premium of control generally observed in successful takeovers of other listed companies. The scheme is a result of a comprehensive competitive process, and having assessed various options throughout that process, including remaining as a public listed company, Volpara's directors are satisfied that the scheme is the most attractive option for shareholders coming out of that process. No better offer has emerged since the scheme was announced, and Volpara's directors do not believe that a better offer is likely to emerge. The scheme provides shareholders with an opportunity to accelerate a capital return while also mitigating the risks and uncertainties that otherwise involved in executing Volpara's strategic plan over time. If the scheme is not implemented, Volpara's share price will likely remain at a price below the scheme consideration of $1.15 per share. All of Volpara's directors reiterate their recommendation that shareholders should vote in favour of the scheme and undertake to vote all of their own Volpara shares in favour of the scheme. Background to the scheme. In July 22, Volpara announced that it completed its strategic review and it was going to execute a strategy focused on delivering operating cash flow break even by the last quarter of FY24 without having to raise additional capital. Volpara successfully restructured its business and it has achieved a sustainable operational model. Volpara has always had the intention to develop or purchase proven computer-aided detection, otherwise known as CAD, technology to complement its existing technology suite. During 2023, Volpara considered a range of options to execute this strategy, including raising capital to develop our own CAD. Volpara's management concluded that it does not have the time, resource, or expertise to compete with the leaders in CAD and capture the market opportunity. Acquiring a company that has market-leading CAD, Volpara did identify some potential targets to acquire, but due to the cost to acquire and provide additional funding, shareholders would have faced a significant dilution. And divesting Volpara and maximising the value for shareholders by leveraging Volpara's intellectual property that it had developed over the last 14 years in a structured sales process. During 2023, multiple parties expressed an interest in acquiring Volpara, so the board considered whether it should consider divesting Volpara to maximise value for shareholders. The board appointed external advisors, including D3 Capital and Advisory, as financial advisors, and Minter Allison Rudd Watts as legal advisors to evaluate offers should any present themselves. A select group of parties entered into non-disclosure agreements with Volpara and undertook due diligence on Volpara's business, and some of these parties submitted non-binding indicative offers to acquire Volpara. Following a thorough assessment of the various options, including the possibility of remaining listed and executing Volpara's strategic plan, the board assessed that the scheme provided the most compelling value for shareholders. The outstanding positive condition needed for the scheme to be implemented is shareholder approval, which will be sought at today's meeting. And if shareholder approval is obtained, the final orders of the High Court in New Zealand will be needed. There are also some other conditions that continue to apply to the scheme until just before the implementation. In broad terms, those conditions require that there is no law, judgment, order, restraint, or prohibition enforced or issued that prohibits, prevents, or makes illegal the implementation of the scheme, and there is no material adverse change and no prescribed occurrence, each as defined in the scheme implementation agreement. Volpara's directors currently anticipate that those conditions will be satisfied. If shareholder approval is obtained, then the scheme is expected to be implemented on or around 21st of May 2024. If the scheme is implemented, shareholders who hold shares on that record date for the scheme will be paid the scheme consideration on the implementation date. More information on the timing of the key implementation steps is set out on page 12 of the scheme booklet. If the resolution is not approved by shareholders and Volpara and Lunit have not agreed by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 16th of April, to hold another shareholder meeting, then either party can terminate the scheme. If this occurs, the scheme will not proceed and you will not be paid the scheme consideration. Volpara will remain listed on the ASX. You will retain your shares in Volpara and continue to be exposed to the risks and opportunities of executing Volpara's strategic plan over time. I will now move on to the resolutions before the meeting. That the scheme, the terms of which are described in the scheme booklet, be and is hereby approved. For the purposes of the resolution, the scheme booklet is the scheme booklet dated 18th of April 2024. We will now provide the opportunity for shareholders to ask any questions. For our online shareholders, to ask a written question, select the messaging icon at the top of the Lumai platform. Select the category from the drop-down menu, type your question in the chat box at the top of the screen and select the send icon. A copy of your submitted questions, along with any written responses from our meeting team, can be viewed by selecting My Messages. Online shareholders can also submit oral questions by following the instructions set out in the online meeting guide. To ask your question verbally, click on the Request to Speak button at the bottom of the broadcast window. The audio questions interface will now display. You will be prompted to confirm your name and enter the topic of your question. Submit your request and follow the instructions to allow access to your microphone and connect to the queue. Please note, while you can submit questions from now on, I will not address them until the relevant time in the meeting. Please note that your questions may be modified, or if we receive multiple questions on one topic amalgamated together. Finally, due to time constraints, we may run out of time to answer all of your questions. We'll now move to question time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we've had 3 questions come in online. The first question is from Mr. Stephen Main. How many shareholders were eligible to vote on today's takeover and how many did so by proxy? And what sort of solicitation campaign did you run to maximise retail shareholder participation in today's vote? I will answer that question. So we have approximately 12,000 shareholders over the voting period. All were eligible to vote. And as Paul mentioned earlier, we've had significantly more than 50% vote. The solicitation campaign, we engaged Morris Adali to run a campaign with all of our retail shareholders. And then a second question also from Mr. Stephen Main. Given the interesting discussion at today's meeting and the fact that thousands of retail shareholders did not attend live, could the chair undertake to make an archived copy of the webcast available on the company's website, at least until the transaction is complete? I can answer that. We will definitely make a copy available on the website. And then we have a third question also from Mr. Stephen Main, and I'm going to direct this one to Terry. The ASX is thinning out noticeably with the biggest drought of IPOs in a decade and one of the biggest runs of takeovers we've ever seen. There have been more than 50 takeover bids of major ASX-listed companies since 2019, with 4 completed so far this year and another 17 in the works. Is the board concerned that our company is being swallowed up by a US giant, following out the investment options for Australia and New Zealand shareholders?
So while I can't comment about the market dynamics and verify the statistics, I will share that, first of all, Lunit is a Korean company, not a US company. That concept about swallowing up, the intent that Lunit has expressed and been consistent is actually to remain the parent organization for the New Zealand-based Volpara as a subsidiary. Going forward, continuing to enhance and support the innovation created in New Zealand and continuing our operations in both New Zealand and Australia, but then poised for growth and expanding that footprint. And Craig, I think, were there any other further questions right now?
So I don't have any further questions. Are there any online questions? I don't believe so.
And are there questions in the room?
Yes.
Terry, does that mean who will be running the US operation then? Lunit or Volpara subsidiary?
I will run.
Just ask on the mic so everyone can hear online.
Sorry. Just a question on the US, and will Volpara as a subsidiary be running that, or will Lunit be running that?
Volpara will run Volpara US and New Zealand, and I will continue running Volpara under Lunit.
Any other questions from the floor? Okay, that's it for questions that I can see for now.
Okay. We'll move on to the voting part of the meeting. Okay. Only shareholders, proxy holders or corporate representatives of a shareholder may vote on today's resolution. The record time for voting eligibility was 11 a.m. on the 10th of April 2024, and the share register at that time we used for voting purposes. For our online shareholders, if you are eligible to vote at this meeting, a voting icon will appear on your screen. Selecting this icon will bring up the resolution and present you with voting options. To cast your vote, simply select one of the options. There is no need to press a submit or a send button, as your vote is automatically counted. And if you're in the room today, please complete your voting card. If you've already voted by proxy but wish to change your vote today, please revoke your vote and submit your new vote. This will take precedence over your previous proxy vote. If any online shareholders are having any difficulties, please contact the helpline, which is 1300 737 760. If you are present at the meeting, please use the voting card given to you when you registered at the door to vote. If you're entitled to vote and do not have a voting card, please raise your hand now and you will be provided with one. Boardroom will collect your voting cards shortly. For clarity, my fellow directors and I intend to vote all discretionary proxies we have received in favour of the resolution as set out in the notice of the meeting. While we provide those of you who are now voting now some time to complete your votes, I'd like to invite Roger Allen, a long-standing director, a past chair, a major investor and shareholder, and a key person who has supported the growth of Volpara Technologies and the evolution of our business from the start, to say a few words. Over to you, Roger.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I first got involved with what was then called Matakeen in 2010, so it's been a 14-year journey, and that came through a meeting I had with John Hood. So John Hood, who was the Vice Chancellor of Oxford, where the Volpara technology originated under Professor Mike Brady, and then Ralph Hinem, who was originally a PhD student, then research associate with Mike. I was dealing with Oxford for other matters, and he told me he was going to chair it and the like. So I have a background in technology, and I have a focus on using technology for social impact. And what they were planning to do in terms of using technology for early detection of breast cancer is something that I felt I could help with, and I've also had experience building companies into the US and global markets. So I invested then, went on the board. I took over from John as chair in 2015 in preparation for our IPO, which we did in 2016. I'd really like to acknowledge Ralph Hinem, who was a scientist and developer of the whole technology platform. And I do a lot of investing with a lot of startups, a lot coming out of universities and science. And very few founders make that transition and be able to lead and drive a company, build the sales and marketing, the compliance regulations, and all that went with it. And Ralph did that for some 12 odd years, led the company through its IPO and capital raisings. When I invested, we had no employees whatsoever in the US. So building a US marketing and sales team. We now have some 2,000 odd radiology clinics as clients in the US. Ralph also had a focus on data. So as we moved to doing the mammogram analysis in the cloud, Ralph was adamant that we keep this data. We anonymised the data, etc. And we built a database, the biggest database in the world, of over 100 million mammograms. And I think there's about 1 million being added, a couple of million, I think, being added every month. That's really important because AI only works with very large data sets. And as I'll get to, what's really a merger with Lunit. Lunit's roughly the same size as Volpara, so we're not being swallowed up by some other person. They have a particular strong focus on the next generation of AI, where Volpara doesn't have that sort of level of expertise. But it doesn't work without data set. So the complementarity there is fantastic. Lunit have focused on Asia, being a Korean company, and Japan and Korea in particular, and they've launched quite well into Europe. Volpara has been focused on the US. As I said, we have well over 100 people in the US, sales and marketing. They have no one. It's the biggest market in the world. We have a suite of products for radiologists. What we don't have is the CAD, the computer-aided detection part, which they have. And they've won many awards now for the best technology. So this, to me, really is a merger. Obviously, technically, they are buying the shares as they're listed on the Korean Stock Exchange. And it's very important now to get scale, to be able to really fund the research and development behind it. They also share the mission of early detection, using AI for early detection breast cancer. So the companies are very compatible. I've met the leadership team in in Korea. It really is a merger. We're bringing two together. It will be the leading company in the whole field of using AI for detection of cancers. We've been focused mainly on, of course, on breast cancer and some lung. They're taking a wider sweep in the whole area. They've hired some 20-odd AI experts from all around the world. They're not all Korean, purely working on AI, the research side of it. I'd also like to acknowledge the contribution of Craig Hatfield, who's been the CEO of the company and has done a fantastic job, not just in normal CFO role, leading as a public company and various capital raises, but really being a real business partner to the management team. And the other directors that came on, Paul came on as chair in the last number of years, and the other directors that are on the board. So, having seen a lot of mergers, a lot of takeovers, a lot of things in the technology world, I think this is one of the best complementary mergers that I have seen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that, Roger, and thank you for your support of Volpara over all those years. And like to say, it's pleasing to see Volpara merge with a company like Lunit. Please note that voting will be closed shortly. So thank you. Online voting will now be closed. Our share register boardroom will count votes, and our auditor, PwC, will scrutinise the count. We will release the full results of today's vote to the ASX as soon as practically possible. Our Managing Director and CEO, Terry Thomas, would like to say a few words before we close.
Thank you very much, Paul. First of all, I just want to acknowledge our shareholders, those that are here, those that are online, and how much we appreciate the support that you've given to Volpara over the years. It's been quite gratifying to be able to connect with some of you and see some of the passion that goes behind your support of this business. I also want to thank the members of our board, our founder, Ralph, our dedicated management team that's worked really hard, and our staff, both past and present staff, to get us to the point to be able to be poised for significant growth. Their focus on saving families from cancer and Lunit's interest in acquiring Volpara and joining forces with us is really a strong testament to the high quality of our products, the significance of our market presence, and really the hard work of all of these employees. So thank you to everyone that's been involved in getting us to this point. Now, I wanted to address one shareholder question, and it's the most common question that came to me personally since we posted about the scheme of arrangement that was proposed, and that was, is this good for humanity? Is this good for the purpose that we have of saving families from cancer? And I'm pleased to tell you, as Roger shared as well, that Lunit shares a very, very similar vision to Volpara. Our purpose is saving families from cancer, Lunit conquering cancer through AI. The alignment is really extraordinary, and they've been consistent in their communication right from our very first conversations with them that implementation of the scheme will support and enhance Volpara's ability to save families from cancer via greater access to research, resources, technology, people, products, and capital. So we're privileged to work in an industry that has such a powerful impact on the people with cancer and on their families, and we remain steadfast in our dedication to the people who will benefit from our technology now and in the future and growing that impact. So thank you again for your support, shareholders, and back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Terry. We were pleased to give shareholders an opportunity to vote on the scheme, and the final results of today's meeting will be published as soon as practical. As there is no other business to be put before the meeting, I now declare the special meeting of Volpara Health Technologies Limited closed. Thank you for everyone for taking the time out of your busy lives to attend both online and in person. Thank you.